Hi everyone, my name is Jenny and welcome back to my creative space. We have about a week left of 2024 and I thought that I would do a little reading vlog and read 4 books that I want to complete before the end of the year. I was looking at the books that I've already completed for the year and I'm trying to narrow down my top 10, and I have 2 books for sure that I'm wondering might make my favorites. And so I wanted to do a bit of a reading vlog and also do my last reading vlog of the year 2024. So the books that I have 3 physical books and then one is on Hoopla. The one on Hoopla that I have is called Krampus by Brom. I've not read anything from Brom before, but I know that their book Slewfoot was really big. I saw it a lot, all over the book spaces the last year, I believe. And this book, Krampus, follows the Yule Lord Krampus. I don't know anything about this specific lord before. This is the first book I've ever read in regards to the Yule Lord. It's more so a horror, but it's a Christmas horror or a holiday horror. So that is what I'm reading on Hoopla. The next book that I have is Magnolia Park's The Long Way Home. This is the 3rd book in the Magnolia Parks universe and the 2nd book for Magnolia Park's storyline specifically. And the next 2 are books that I've been putting off for a little while. The first one is Middle Game by Shawnee McGuire. This one I've heard the audiobook is really good, so I'm gonna go check that out from my library and do a little bit of an immersion read for this. But I know so many people who have really, really loved this book, and this book being their favorite of all time. And so I think the expectation of that from other people has really made me a little scared to pick it up. But, nothing like procrastination helping you be ambitious. So the last read of my year, I want to finally get over my fear of this book and read it, and I am hoping that this is a 5-star read for me. Then the last book that I have is a holiday romance. This is a book that's been on my radar since it came out, to be honest, but then when I found out about the book, it was well past the holidays and I didn't want to pick it up until the right season, and now is the time for that book, and it's Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochrane. But with that, I'm going to finish up some things for work and then clock out. And then once I do, I will go ahead and catch you up with the 2 books that I have already started. Okay, so I am here to do my first update. The first book I wanted to talk about is Krampus by Brom. That audiobook I started yesterday, and honestly, I started it before bed. And I don't know why I do this to myself. I do it all the time with horror where I'm like, oh, I'm in the mood for horror, let's pick it up. And I pick it up right before bed and I creep myself out and I just feel very uncomfortable. So for this book, I'm reading via audio and I really had no expectation besides it being a holiday horror. And when I tell you, the beginning is the voice of Krampus, and he's kind of reading out, it almost feels like a letter directed specifically to Santa Claus. I don't have the physical book, so I'm not sure if it's an actual writing of Krampus or it's just him speaking to us as the audience. But it starts off with this letter of grievances that he has towards Santa Claus because Santa Claus has basically stolen Krampus's power and has sort of locked him up in this cave prison dwelling thing. And the whole plot point is that Krampus is trying to regain his power and reclaim his name that basically Santa Claus has soiled. And so the first part of the book, we are introduced to this man named James. Pretty sure his name is James. He's a very pitiful man. Very, very pitiful, very sad, very down on his luck. He's like, I've got no money. my wife is leaving me. I barely have any money to like get a present for my daughter, and I've been promising her this and promising her that. I've been promising my wife this, and he's thinking like the holidays are so miserable because I'm living in this trailer home and my wife is cozying up with some other man because he's better than me, and my daughter is living in that man's house, and like slowly I'm going to be kicked out and like replaced by this random man, and he's just sitting there complaining about his life, being like, I am going to end things. I am so miserable. I am so sick. And before he ends things, he sees like what looks like Santa Claus's sleigh and like a bunch of these little creature things attacking him. And then this thing falls out of the sky and through the roof of his trailer. And he's like, oh shit. And then this other creature thing falls out from the sleigh like several yards away. And he's like, what the hell did I just see? So all of his neighbors run out, blah, blah, blah. And our main character, James, ends up finding in his house the bag of Santa Claus, like the sack that Santa Claus uses to hold its toys, right? And so that's the initial thing. The thing is that Krampus's goal is to get that like Santa Claus sack back because that's like where all the power is being held. And I think obviously Krampus comes and bothers our good old friend James. I'm really interested because one of my friends had said that it definitely gets more grotesque and gory and unhinged after like we kind of get the setup of this James character. And like, yeah, he's kind of pitiful and whatever. Like, I find that horror a lot of the times loves to follow a little pitiful character. I will say via audio, the voice of Krampus is so compelling. Like, the way that the narrator speaks like sent chills up my spine. Honestly, I was not expecting that. And so once he started speaking as Krampus, and I didn't know he was speaking as Krampus either, because again, I don't have the physical book, I was like, what the hell? I am so unnerved. I had to pause it and like be like, okay, well, what's going on here? Because I am so creeped out. Okay, and then for my update with Magnolia Park's The Long Way Home, I won't talk too in depth about this because it is the third book in this series, but basically in the first book, we are following Magnolia Parks and also the point of view of her like best friend and ex BJ, and we kind of follow them as we see them navigate their very kind of toxic back and forth relationship. They used to be romantically together, and then something happened that made them break up, and because they're still like best friends with each other, they're always seeing each other and they're always in each other's orbit, and it makes that to be very messy because they're very jealous of like the sort of romantic and sexual entanglements that each of them have with other people. Despite my apprehensions of this book at the beginning, Jessa Hastings has really, really pulled me in. And so in this third book, we're basically following the same sort of back and forth plot point with Magnolia and BJ, but they're both at very different places in their lives than where they were in the first book. Magnolia is dealing with like getting a different job and trying to put herself in a different space physically from BJ in order to kind of do her own sense of self-discovery. And BJ himself is going through like therapy and like really understanding the issues that have led to the complicated relationship between him and Magnolia. And they both think that they're in this space of like, yeah, I can appreciate and love this person, but we don't have to be together. And then some sort of circumstance brings them back together again, and they're trying to figure out like, is this the person for me, or is this person like not healthy for me, or should we not be together? We'll say though that there are serious topics handled in this, but because it has that sort of like gossipy rich people drama kind of thing, it kind of lessens the blow a little bit. I will say in book one, there's discussions of substance abuse, and that was a very hard thing to see, like to see the characters navigate. But yeah, do check trigger warnings, because in this one, you also like see discussions of like SA and stuff like that with certain characters, and it is quite surprising at how deep this third one is getting. Like, it's not just this very surface level, vapid, rich people kind of thing that I expected when starting the series. And I don't know, Jessa Hastings just really creates such a compelling atmosphere, and also that the chapters are quite short. You just like eat this like popcorn, to be honest. And I do appreciate the fact that we get not only Magnolia's point of view, but BJ's point of view, and you get a bee in each of their heads, and you can scream at both of them and be like, you guys are just so stupid, and just talk to each other. But that's all I have now. I will get going, and then I will pick up the camera once I have any updates. Okay, so I thought it would be good to pop in here and do a bit of a mini haul for you. The other day I had gone to Barnes and just did a little bit of scoping. I don't have too many books in mind to purchase, but you know, it's always fun to have a little browse around there. So the one book that I wanted to get for sure was Myrtle. This one isn't like a reading book, it's like a puzzle detective game. And so in this book, there's like different little murder investigations that you get to do, which I heard a lot of people really like and enjoy this. And I wanted to have like a sort of decoding kind of mystery game to do that wasn't on like my screen, and so this is the perfect thing for me to do. I'm gonna try a few out later tonight, but that was the first book that I got. The next book that I got is The Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. I have been milling over the idea of repurchasing the US editions of Robin Hobb's books, because Del Rey, I think just this past year, republished them in the US specifically in these new paperbacks. And just like look at how floppy this is. And I know starting next year, I want to start to do a slow reread and like deeper annotations of the book. And I know this series is like one of my favorite series of all time. So I don't mind owning like duplicate copies of this one. And I just want to do a comparison. This is my UK paperback. I got these before like Book Depository was closing out. I was like, okay, this is the one series that I know for sure the UK covers have all the editions of the book all in like the same size and whatever. I think when I started reading this, the only editions I could find in store at my Barnes was these mass market ones. And the thing is like the mass market one was like the most random mass markets. And then there were so many missing that I was just like, okay, I'll do the UK. And then my friend was like, oh, they're reprinting them in the US. But for some reason, the US editions, the Rain Wild Chronicles, are left out. I don't know what that's about, but so here's my comparison. I'm like, this is the UK, this is the US, and just the hand feel of this, even in my left hand, which is a little bit weaker, I'm right dominant, it just feels so joyful to read. And like, look, you can like, I'm annotating my book, I'm holding my book open and not struggling, whereas like with the UK one, I'm like struggling to hold it open. One thing that is really different is that the UK ones have like a foiling to them that the US does. This one has like a semi-glossy, and this one definitely is like a very matte papery feel, and I think that's why they're able to do the gilding on the covers. But I am just excited to reread this and really deeply annotate. The first book, the floppiness is so nice, but I know that when I start reading Ship of Magic, that series and like all that follows afterwards is going to be so nice. Like, let me show you. I think Mad Ship, the second book in the series, is the thickest of them all. Look at this brick. I'm like holding it like this, and it doesn't even flop open. And that is my mini haul for you. I am so excited to get into this reread, and I am going to give you a mini review of this once I try out a few puzzles. Hello, I'm doing a little bit of a check-in before I get ready for my holiday party later, and oh goodness, I did a lot of prep for cooking and stuff, so I'm a little bit tired, but the good news is that I was able to read a good amount of Krampus, so I'm about 50% into my read, and what I will say at the 50% mark is that this book is so long-winded. I think I had said that before when we were discussing the length of the audiobook, and me being a bit concerned about how long the audio is. I think I said 16 to 15 hours, something like that. And at the 50% mark, I'm just like, geez, we're really, really chatting about what's going on. The one thing about the plot, oh, also yesterday I was calling this man James. His name is Jesse. So sorry to this man for calling him the wrong name the whole time yesterday. But the thing about this story is that we're following Krampus as he's attempting to get revenge on Santa Claus, right? But then we are introduced to Jesse at the beginning, and so we're following his like situation with like his wife and his daughter, and like his wife kind of leaving him, and then there's this sort of like mini gang type of situation going on in the small town that Jesse's in. So there's like a lot of kind of small town politics going on, and then on like the backside, the issues with Krampus versus Santa Claus kind of thing. And I'm like, individually, the situations are interesting, or could be interesting depending on like what you like. But in a horror, I'm kind of like, okay, like it's not necessarily pulling me. I'm definitely more interested in the revenge plot than I am with like the small town politics of it all. And then also like Jesse's just not a character that I'm that interested in. And because like a lot of what I've read thus far is mostly following Jesse, I'm like, let's get the show on the road, my guy. And then the sort of horror elements that I've seen thus far is mostly like, torture scenes. They're not too intense, but do keep in mind that there are torture scenes because Jesse's involved with like the town's gang thing, and like he's not doing what they want, so they're tying him up and like beating his hands in and like bashing in his knees, stuff like that. And it's like, I feel sorry for the guy. He is really down bad, and not the fun kind of down bad, like genuinely concerning. And I don't know. I really don't know where this story is going to go. The Krampus moments are more so like preludes to each chapter. And yeah, I'm just kind of feeling neutral about it at the moment, because it's like, I don't know, in my mind, I feel like this should have been a novella. I don't know if this was the right sort of read for me to be introduced with Brahm's work. I'm still really interested in picking up Slewfoot, but for this to be so like holiday theme focused, I'm finding that not always do holiday theme type books work for me. And so I'm slightly worried for when I read Kiss Her Once for me, if like the holiday of it all is going to distract me from like the book, if that makes sense. But right now I'm like, it is horrifying to know that like Krampus has these devil-like creatures helping him, but I'm not necessarily that horrified. And I'm like, can we just get to like when Krampus and Santa Claus get to like this fight? Because that's what I'm interested in at this point, and not whatever the hell Jesse, that guy, is doing at this point. And then on the other hand, I'm at like 30-ish% of the Magnolia Park's Long Way Home. And geez, what an emotional read. Like, from where I had paused when I started the vlog, we were just towing into the emotions. And now at like the 30% mark, we're really getting into like the issues between Magnolia and BJ, and like all these people in their lives being like, you're meant to be together. And we're learning about each of their individual trauma. And I'm like, this Jessa Hastings author probably wouldn't know joy if it smacked them in the face. You know, maybe rich people don't have it all. Maybe they don't. Maybe they would if they just decided to like make better choices for themselves, but I don't know. These fictional rich people really don't know how to make a good choice to save their life. And it's concerning me. It's hurting me a little bit. I was telling my friend Lori, who loves the series, like, I don't know if it's just me being extremely emotional, because obviously the topics being covered in this third one are a little bit heavier, or if it's me being visited by my time of the month, like that's making me emotional. Who knows? I don't, but I would say check trigger warnings specifically for this third one. I don't want to say specifically what it is, because people could consider that a spoiler to the plot, but yeah. Seeing these characters go through what they went through in the past and sort of like rehashing it out on page now as they're a little bit more mature is hurting my feelings a little bit, if I'm being honest. But those are the updates with the two books that I've read. Yeah, I'm really hoping that I can finish Krampus and, you know, get on with my reading. I really want to try out Middle Game, and I'm hoping that the flow and pace of that works a little bit better. Like, completely different genre than Krampus, but I was not expecting the book to be so long, and I think that's what's tampering my enjoyment. And also with Myrtle, I did 5-ish, I think 5 yesterday, 5 elementary versions of Myrtle, and it's very interesting. I enjoy it. It's like a good little think of a time. Again, I've only done the elementary versions, and I'm interested in seeing like how difficult it really gets. I think there's 4 levels. Like, it starts with elementary and then goes to like impossible. But yeah, those are my updates. I'm gonna go get ready to have family over, but if I do have some time, I will go ahead and do a little bit more reading of Krampus specifically, because I do really want to get that done. But yeah, that's going to be it for this check-in, and I will see you later. Hi, hello. Yesterday I did not do any updates because I was just hanging out with the family, having a good time. And I did last night get to finish Krampus. Thank God. Honestly, that book, I don't think, okay, one, I don't think it was poorly written or that Brom didn't have a specific direction that they wanted to go in. I just don't think that I liked the addition of the Jesse character and his plot in the overarching narrative of Krampus. I think the parts that I really enjoyed were the elements of Krampus seeking his revenge and how he was getting to the plot of, like, you know, beating down Santa Claus. And for me, I just wasn't interested in this additional character, Jesse, and like the small town politics of it all. The thing is I don't know if it really was like small town. I mean, obviously that was an element, but for Jesse, like his whole plot narrative was that he was just trying to get his wife and kid back. And I'm like, from the very start, when we're introduced to Jesse, you can see that he is a type of person who has just let his wife down more times than once. And for this to be like some sort of attempt at a redemption that he was trying to have with his wife, I was like, snooze, let's carry on. Like, there is this creature who is trying to have a bloody revenge towards Santa Claus, and like that's what I thought it was going to be because the title of the book is Krampus. And I feel like I got so much more of Jesse's like sad, I'm a pitiful man and I need my wife back vibes. And I'm like, who really is that invested in you right now, Jesse? Who really is? I'm not. And I didn't have that good of a time because he took up so much of the narrative. If I'm going to be really mean about it, I would give the book a 2-star. If I'm being kind about it, I would give the book a 3-star. And yeah, I was just very disinterested in how long the narrative was. I feel like if Brom made it into a novella and we really just honed in and focused on the Krampus story, I think it would have been a knockout. And also the audiobook, I really enjoyed the narration and the life that the narrator brought to Krampus. But we were just hanging out too much with that Jesse man. Like, who cares? I don't care. But that's enough complaining about that book. And the next book I'm going to update you on is Magnolia Parks. I'm 50% into that one, and I'm having a very interesting time. I am very interested in, obviously, the dynamic between Magnolia and BJ, but there's so much back and forth from, I think the last time I updated you was 30%, so within that 20%, there was like a lot of back and forth. And I will say, like, that is just the nature of these characters. Like, it's kind of frustrating on one end, but at another end, like, Jessa Hastings kind of sets up these characters in a way where, like, you understand why they continue to have these back and forths. But it can be frustrating at times. The 50% mark, one of my favorite characters, Julian Hayes, makes his entrance in this third book. And it makes me want to giggle. He's such an icon. He is so funny. Because, like, just the sort of things that he does in this specific scene, they're at like a New Year's Eve party or something like that, and he's kind of like stirring the pot, and it is just so funny. Like, he is like a gang lord. He's very scary, very notorious, but he is just so silly in the aspect of him being around like BJ and Magnolia, and like he knows that he can get away with a lot of things because of his position in the society as like a notorious gang lord. So he kind of just gets to dilly and dally and do whatever the hell he wants. And it just makes the narrative so funny because, like, all the shit he's stirring up. But I'm having a good time with that. 50% in. I am nervous to see how the rest of this book goes because I know that it kind of tumbles down a little bit more emotionally. So we'll see how that goes. And then I do have work today, and this morning I had quite a bit to process, but that also means that I got to start my third book of this vlog, Middle Game by Shawnee McGuire. At the very, very beginning, I'm about 10% in now, but at the very beginning, there's like this introduction of, they call it book 7, I believe, and so book 7, the end. So we start off knowing the ending or like part of the ending. Like it definitely sounds like some information has been left away, but we're kind of introduced to our characters much further into the future, and then we kind of hop back to like the very beginnings. And I will be very honest, the book 7 snippet wasn't confusing to me. Yeah, once we got to book 0, we're talking about like this alchemist woman who is, I guess she's starting like experimentation on humans, and like trying to give them these like capabilities or whatever. And that was kind of confusing to me because at first I thought that the woman was Roger or Dodger. I can't remember. Is Roger's the boy and Dodger's the girl? So I thought that it was Dodger for a second, but then they kept going. I was like, oh, never mind. Like this isn't the main characters that we're focusing on. And then there was another part with like her protege, how he takes over her work, and like this is all within one chapter. So I was like, what the hell are we talking about? And they're like going to Congress or whatever and talking about their alchemic research, and then we're like talking about investors. And not that it was badly written, but I was like, maybe it's too early in the morning, but I just sat there while I was doing my work like, who are these people? I know that this book doesn't, like, you're just supposed to vibe with it, and that's what I did. And I was having an interesting time. Like, obviously, the way they set up the narrative, and like the main alchemist in this project is trying to like create children to unlock like the key to this specific like world or whatever. Like, it's all spoken about vaguely. Yeah, those are my updates. Having a lot of fun with Magnolia Parks, getting really into this one. I'm hoping, because I'm on my lunch right now, and I have like another 4 hours of work afterwards. So I'm hoping that I get a good amount in here. I will say it's not necessarily confusing. It's just the fact that you don't have any information about the world, and that doesn't, for me at this point, doesn't make it confusing. It's just like, oh, like I just am not sure what the clear point and direction we're going to at, because we are obviously just being settled in with the characters and being introduced to these young twins. There are moments in the book where we are given like little snippets of this book called Over the Garden Wall, and if I remember correctly, I think Shawnee McGuire actually published like a novella called Over the Garden Wall. I'm not sure if it's like all of these snippets that are in Middle Game being published into like a novella, or if it's more, but those little snippets, I'm not sure how they're going to fully play into this book, but you know, once I get further in, I'm sure somebody will clarify for me within the book. Happy Friday, everybody. I am so looking forward to the weekend. Honestly, the past 2 days of work have been quite busy. So I'm looking forward to the weekend, but I still have half my workday left. I have some updates for Magnolia Parks and also Middle Game. Middle Game, let's do my thoughts on Magnolia Parks now. I'm at the 60% mark and I'm still having a good time. We're at a position where it's a little bit less stress between the two couples as we're focusing on like Magnolia's relationship with her like friends, and we also are getting a bunch more with the character that I like, Julian hates. So that's been interesting. I wonder when like the really big moment is going to happen in this book and bigger conflicts and issues arise. But at this point, I'm having a silly, goofy time, which I do appreciate since, was it yesterday that I updated you? I was telling you about how I wasn't having the best time with Krampus. So this is lifting my spirits a lot. And then also, middle game. I believe I said that I started it yesterday, and I think where I had updated, I was at the 10% mark. Now I'm at the 45% mark, and I think my main thoughts is that I'm having a decent time, but it hasn't enthralled me as much as I would like it to, especially at like almost the 50% mark. I would assume that I would be much more invested in the storyline than I actually am at this moment. And I think the issue that I'm having is mostly that I don't feel that connected with the plot and the characters. Like, the plot up until this point is quite vague. Like, I don't know if this book is mostly vibes, but obviously from the start of the book, there is this element of like these alchemists putting these children out into the world and they're attempting to accomplish something. So there obviously is an end goal in this book. And I'm very sure that Middle Game is a standalone. But for the 50% mark and to only be at the point in these characters' lives where they're in like grad school, I think, and not much really happening in terms of like the alchemic side, I'm just wondering how quickly the plot is going to pick up because, you know, I am at the 50% mark and I'm not sure, you know, what event is coming next to really push the plot forward. And I think also with our characters, I feel like we know more about Dodger and mostly like mostly her accomplishments in life, like on the academic lens. But for their personalities, especially Roger, I feel like the only thing that I've really been getting is like, obviously, he's very well versed in like language. Um, and then he has a girlfriend. Other than that, I'm kind of like, okay, so Roger has a girlfriend, Dodger is very academically accomplished, and she has no friends. And those are like the kind of things that I'm getting from this book. Like, we are spending a lot of time with these characters, but at the same time, I feel like I don't know that much about them. Like, their internal thoughts and like who they are as people besides the connection that they have with each other. Like, I feel like I'm just being kept on the surface of who they are as characters versus like really getting to know them and like besides them having this almost telepathic connection, why they have such a strong trust in each other. Like, I know that we get them from elementary school having this connection, but I don't know, there's something that I feel like I'm being held at a distance to. And I don't know if it's me having like these really high expectations because there are quite a few people that I watch and that I really trust their reviews who have really loved and adored Middle Game. I'm not having a terrible time. Like, I have nothing negative to say about it, but at the same time, I feel like I don't have much to say about it. So those are my updates. I will hopefully have a more positive update for you come the end of this book. But at this point, I'm just waiting and seeing. Hi, good morning, everyone. I am getting ready for the day, and I wanted to do a bit of an update as yesterday I finished Middle Game. I got to like 80-ish% of Magnolia Parks. Again, I'll do the Magnolia update, and then we'll talk about Middle Game. Magnolia, all I really have to say is Julian hates. That's it. That's all I have to say. And then on the end of middle game yesterday, I finished it, and I think when I did my, what was it, like 50-40% checkup, I was saying that I was feeling quite distant from the characters. And to be honest, I think that feeling continued to the very end. Like, I found Roger and Dodger's dynamic interesting, but so much of what we know about them as characters is just about their relationship with each other. Like, I feel like there are moments where Dodger, I wasn't getting too much of her individual personality outside of her relationship with Roger. And I understand why that is because of the nature of this story and like the discussion of how entwined the two are from each other. But I think Roger on page got so much more like character development. We get to see Roger through several relationships and like living his life. And I know out of the two, Dodger's character is supposed to be this more reclusive, like brilliant genius, but even then we didn't get to see that reclusiveness on page, and it didn't necessarily bother me, but it was something that I kind of wanted more of since it did seem to lean more character focused. And then on the end of the plot, I think in the synopsis, the plot was so interestingly set up. Like, it really intrigued me, it really pulled me in. Obviously, that's why I picked up the book. But I feel like, I don't know, like, even till the very end, the elements of the story and like the whole thing with like the alchemy congress or whatever, like, it felt so vague, even up until the end. And I'm not the type of reader that needs to be told, like, things from A to Z. I am okay with having things like up in the air, but I just wanted to know so much more than what Seanan McGuire was telling me. Like, all the really interesting bits of why I was reading the story just felt so, like, left up in the air, and like there was so much mystery. And mystery is fine. Like, I do like to be pulled in and have like this very like, oh, I need to turn the page because I really want to know and understand what the author is writing. But there comes a point when me as a reader needs to understand the type of world the author is setting up, and it seemed like a really big story plot and like world Seanan McGuire was building, and I was just never brought into that world. I thought that they were going to experience these reveals more heavily than like someone just being like, hey, you're confused? Here's the answer. I'm like, oh, okay. I did enjoy the tidbits and the answers given. Like, don't get me wrong. I think that Seanan McGuire's idea and plot points and this entanglement of two people was such an interesting story plot, but I just think the way that it was executed just wasn't for me. What I'm gonna do though is try out the Wayward Children series because those ones are novellas. So I'm not like investing as much time as I did with Middle Game. Not that I think it was a negative investment at all, but I think getting to try Seanan McGuire's writing in a more bite-sized way will be interesting to see if like maybe the issues that I had were more so like plotting and pacing way instead of like an issue with their writing. But yeah, I think maybe the fault was all mine, where I kind of had these really, really high expectations of the book because so many people that I enjoy watching really enjoyed Middle Game, and it was like one of their favorite books of all time. And I put this pressure on this book to be like, you're going to change my life. And, maybe it's a user error at that point. But, I am glad that I finally got to it and read this book that I've had on my backlist for so long. But, yeah, I'm slightly disappointed that I didn't like fall head over heels with it. I do see the merit and why people really love and enjoy the book and why it's like basically a favorite of all time for certain creators. Um, but unfortunately, I cannot be part of the Middle Game lover fan club. I'm just a Middle Game neutral kind of gal. And being neutral about a book is good. Like a 3-star isn't a bad rating at all. I was just hoping it was a 5-star. I think while I clean and do like all my setup and stuff, I'm gonna read Kiss Her Once for Me, and I'm gonna use my Spotify hours for that one. It's a pretty short one. I think on one time speed it's like a 10 minute, jeez, a 10-hour audiobook. So I can definitely finish that one today. My goal is to complete all my reads today and close out the vlog. Hello friends, I am doing my check-in for Kiss Her Once for Me. If the video quality looks a little different, I am filming on a new camera setup that I got recently. I have been looking at the Osmo Pocket 3 for about a year now, and I recently got a bonus from work, and I decided to bite the bullet and finally invest in this camera setup. And honestly, I'm so happy and excited that I get to like test this out and try it. Before I was filming on my phone, which I liked the quality a lot, and I also liked the fact that like I could see the viewfinder was just my screen, whereas with the Osmo, the viewfinder is like right below and the camera is like much taller, or the lens that I'm looking into is much higher than the screen. But that'll just be me trying to acclimate with the new setup here. But yeah, just wanted to share with you if things look a little bit different, it's because I do have a new camera and I'm very happy and pleased with my investment. I also am here to do my check-in for Kiss Her Once for Me. I have started it while I cleaned and I'm around 20% into the book. So the concept is that our main character Ellie's kind of down in her luck. She is not financially where she wants to be. She's not where she wants to be either in her career or also her love life, and she's kind of hung up on this woman she had a one-night stand with last year on Christmas Eve. And ever since that day, she's periodically thought about this woman to the point where she had to have like this cathartic moment, and she made a webtoon about her experience with this woman. And ever since then, she's not finding connection the way she did with the woman named Jack. And we know from the very get-go that she's demisexual, so like a lot of her friends are trying to be like, just go out there and date, and she's like, that's just not something that I'm comfortable with. Not only the fact that she's demisexual, but she has some severe anxiety, so she's like, this is just not it. And then her friends like, you just gotta get out there, go date somebody new, and stop kind of pining after this woman that you just met for a day kind of thing. And so her coworker at the cafe she works at is like, who the perfect person to ask out is Andrew. And he's the very handsome Korean American man who like owns the building that the cafe is in, and so he's really rich and whatever. And her coworker's like, every single time he comes in here, he's so nice to you, he like winks to you, he's so chivalrous, like just give it a go. And she has this breakdown at work that Andrew kind of witnesses, and so he feels bad and he invites her to go get some drinks after work. And they things kind of tumble down to where he opens up about the fact that his grandfather had died and he can't get his inheritance because, in his words, his grandfather is an asshole and won't give him his inheritance unless he marries somebody. So she's like, oh, well, you're the most handsome person, like, in these parts, kind of thing. Like, any woman would be willing to marry you for you to get your inheritance. And even if it was like a fake marriage, because he doesn't want to be married at the age of 29, she's like, anybody would want to fake marry you. He's like, okay, well, why don't you do it? And she's like, what the hell? I don't want to fake marry you. And he's like, think about it. You are in financial distress. I want to get my money, and I'll give you 10%. And she's like, is 10% like 20,000? And he's like, babes, it's 200,000. I will give you $200,000. And she's like, this is a life-changing amount of money for her. And so she's like, I still won't do it. And I'm thinking, okay. I mean, like, you don't have to actually be married to him. Like, you could just be married to him on paper. Like, you don't have to be with him like that, you know what I mean? But I'm like, okay, Ellie, like, who am I to tell you what to do with your life? And then they get like super smashed and drunk, and the next morning she wakes up with a ring on her finger, and she's like, oh my god, we got eloped. And he's like, we didn't, we got fake engaged. And they know because he posted it on his social media, so he has to bring her to his family Christmas that year, and she doesn't have any plans, so like it all works out. And I've gotten to the part where they've gone to his family cabin, and his sister shows up, and his sister Jacqueline is the woman Jacqueline that she had a one-night stand with last year. And so she walks in the house and she's like a deer in headlights, like, what the fuck? This woman that I've been in love with and pining after shows up, and I'm fake engaged to her brother. It's a silly, goofy setup, really. Really, it is so fun at this moment in time. I'm sure that there's going to be some heavier hitting moments in regards to, like, just Ellie trying to figure out her life and feeling like she's not where she wants to be. And I think that will hit me hard emotionally. And I will check in once I have everything finished up for you, or if there's anything super juicy I want to update you on. So I am here to close out this vlog. I have finished both Magnolia Parks and Kiss Her Once for Me. Magnolia Parks, it is the third book in the series, so I don't want to say too much about it, but also I don't think I want to talk about it right now. So that's where we're landing on that. Not in a bad way, but in a... yeah, just not in a bad way. Just know that it's not a negative. I don't want to talk about it. And then for Kiss Her Once for Me, this book was so pleasantly surprising. I think like I haven't really read too many holiday books where I've really felt compelled or like looked at it in a way where I'm like, I really enjoyed this book. I really want to recommend this to other people. And I liked it outside of the fact that it was holiday. Like, I feel like certain holiday books, if you took it outside of that specific, like if you took the holiday out of the book, it completely falls apart. Whereas with this one, it was such a solid romance, and like the character work in this and the sort of conflicts that come about in this story could have been easily outside of the holiday season, and it still would have been a very strong romance. The yearning in this was out of this world. I really love yearning in books, and this book had all the yearning. And at one point I was just like, yeah, I know that you're pretending to be her brother's fake fiance, but like, is it really, like, you know, it was just one of those type of books. And then just also the character Ellie that we're following, like, as she's navigating her life and like figuring out what she wants from other people and like kind of understanding that she is worth people's like love and adoration and just having people in her life care for her. That character arc really struck home for me. Like, I think there was a part where she's talking about that she wants somebody to choose her and to be by her because she has this complicated relationship with her mother where her mom really just comes into her life for monetary needs and nothing else really. And so that makes Ellie really flighty in relationships and it makes it difficult for her to like trust other people in that way. And for it to be depicted in this book, I was just like, Alison Cochrane, I did not know you were writing like this. This was such an amazing book, and I'm so glad that I finally got to reading it and that I found a holiday themed book that actually worked for me. If you've made it this far, I would love to know one of the last books that you've read for this year, 2024, and how well that went for you. If you have nothing to say, I guess we could do like holiday-esque emojis or like Christmassy, wintry time emojis for Kiss Her Once for me in the comments below. Other than that, I will see you very soon in my next video, which will be my 2024 favorites. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon. Bye!